Greetings, this is Doc Ock coming at you live and direct from Black Facts Headquarters Central this evening with another installment of Doc Ock at noon and 9. Yes, we've got a full program this evening of more scary stories. Yes, matter of fact, tonight we're going to be continuing a story we started a couple of nights ago about Soldier Jack. So if you haven't heard it before, well, we want you to just go ahead and kick back because we are about to go super black. So get ready to rock and roll while we stroll because we are right here in control. Yes, 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 yes. It's so true. So true. Now, our proverb for tonight is, almost forgot. Before we get to the proverb for tonight, you know what we need to do. We need to advise each and every one of you out there in tubular Black Facts land to go ahead and give us a like if you're watching on Facebook. Give us a thumbs up if you're watching on YouTube. And last but not least, go ahead and reach for it as you spread the word far and wide about Black Facts, because we're not over here trying to hide. We're just trying to put a little more glide in your stride as we give you a little bit more pride. That's right. Some black pride is what we're talking about tonight. Meanwhile, we're dealing with some haints in the holler. Haints and legends in the holler. So get ready because we're about to rock and roll up in this puppy. Meanwhile, proverb for tonight is very simply, when you play the devil and you lose, what happens next? That is the question. When you play the devil and you lose, what happens next? Think about it, don't stink about it. Meanwhile, we're coming out of the book we've been working with this week, starting this week, Jackie Tales. Yes, we have read from this book before, but if you're watching on YouTube, where you should be at, if you can be at, then you'll note that we are also including a new element, which is a slideshow while we tell the story. One of the stories that we've told before. We're going to tell it a little more, and hopefully we might even open another door for you to go through. Let's just see what doors we can open tonight. That's the sound of a door. Squeaky door opening. All right. All right, so here we go. Jack found himself a house once he got out the army. He found himself a house. He liked the house. He wanted the house. But the man wouldn't sell him the house and wouldn't rent him the house neither. But he would give him the house if he could stay in the house for one full night. Jack figured he could do it. So he goes up in there, brave as he can be, because after all, he is Soldier Jack, you see. So he goes on up into the house. And while he's in the house, he encounters some haints. Now, he's been warned about these haints, and that it could be that when the sun dawns on the very next morn, the Jack could be quite gone for all practical purposes. So Jack has to be smart. He's got to play it smart. He's got to play to win. And so Jack ends up playing cards with some of the Haints. And he says to the Haints, I've been in the army for 10 years. I learned to play cards real good. So if I win, what happens then? Well, the Haints say, we're still going to eat you up. Win, lose, or draw. In other words, heads, they win, and tails, he loses. So Jack says, well, that sounds fair. They all sit down, and the Haints commence to putting great big stacks of yellow gold nuggets in front of them on the table. Now wait, Jack said, I can't play cards. I don't have anything in my pocket but a few pennies. They said, we'll give you some gold. We'll spot you some gold. And all 7 Haints stood up, held their fingers out, and they made many stacks and piles and piles and stacks and piles and stacks and stacks and piles of gold all over the floor. They gave Jack half and they kept the other half, and this was how the game went. Jack would win a hand, and the Haints would win a hand. Jack would win a hand, and the Haints would win a hand. Jack would win a hand, and the Haints would win a hand. Jack would win a hand, and then those Haints would win a hand. Well, Jack just got plumb tired of that. He stood up, opened his coat, unwound that string from around his gallus button, opened the sack, pointed it in the direction of the Haints, and he said, "Wickety whack, get into my sack." And one by one, all 7 of them green Haints leaped down the sack. Jack tied it up real good and threw it behind the door. He smoked his corncob pipe and laid down on his quilt. He slept for the rest of the night. The next morning, Jack heard the door opening. Click, click, creak. And a man walked in. He was scared because he knew the Haints had eaten Jack all up. But Jack and he yawns, and he stretches a little more and says, "Who are we?" Yow. The man said, "You're still alive." Jack said, "Well, did you think I wouldn't be?" The man said, "But them Haints didn't eat you up." "Nah," Jack said. "Here, take this down to the river." And he handed the man the sack. "Find the deepest end," Jack said. "Open the sack and drop 'em in. And bring my sack back." The man said, "What's in here?" As if he didn't know. Jack said, "Them Haints." The man said, "Ooh, don't give 'em to me." "Go on now," said Jack. And so the man went down to the river, found the deepest end, and he dropped those Haints in. He brought the sack back and gave it back to Jack. He said, "The house is yours. You deserve it." So Jack went into the house, and lo and behold, them Haints had left every piece of that gold. Jack had him a brand new house, a castle, in fact, and he was a rich man to boot. That's what I'm talking about. He had so much gold, he buried some of it up under the house. He hoarded some between the walls. He put some under his mattress. He put the rest in his pocket. Jack was a wealthy man. Do you hear me? He was wealthy. But you know, Jack was a very lonely man. The only woman he liked was the king's daughter. And she liked Jack too. Oh, yes, she did. But she wouldn't let on that she did. She'd sit on the king's porch and she'd waved to Jack in a fairly well kind of way. They just waved back and forth all the time, all the time. One day Jack was figuring he had enough money. He had a nice house, a home. He'd asked the king's daughter to marry him, but when he got to the king's house, the king's daughter wasn't on the front porch. She's probably inside, Jack said. He knocked. And the king opened the door. Well, if it isn't Jack from down the way. How do you do today, sir? And Jack said, howdy, king. Well, Jack, I'm not doing so well. Ho, hoo, ho, hoo, ho, hoo. Jack said, king, why are you crying like that? And the king said, it's my child. It's my child. She real sick. The doctor says she'll die. Oh, Jack said, sorry to hear that. The king said, Jack, what are you doing here? Jack said, well, sir, I've come to ask you for your daughter's hand in marriage. The king said, wahoo, oh, she's going to be dead before she can get married. Oh, Jack said, I'm so sorry. Do you think I can see her before she dies, though? You better hurry, said the king. The doctor says the death angel is in the room with her. Jack said, all right, I'll go see her. So Jack ran down the hall to the daughter's room. He opened the door, and there she was, all up in the bed, all stretched out, low, sick. Jack went to the bed. Beside the bed was a table and a pitcher and a bowl. Jack looked into the pitcher, and inside that pitcher was fresh spring water. So he went into his pocket and got his glass, and he poured that water into the glass and held that glass up. He looked all around the room, and he saw it. Standing there behind the daughter's bed, ready to grab her at any moment, was the death angel. Oh! Jack stepped back, unbuttoned his coat, unwound that string from around his gallows button, took that sack and pointed it at the death angel, and you know what he did. Then he went, wickety whack, get into my sack. And that was the end of that. The death angel flew up into the air, down into the sack. Jack tied that sack close and ran out the door, down the road, and deep in the woods, and hung the sack in the tallest oak tree he could find. When Jack got back, the king's daughter was up, alive and well. So Jack and the king's daughter got married, and they lived, and then they lived some more. Jack lived to be 600 years old. Yes, he did. One morning, Jack walked along the road, and he spotted an old man. This man was so old he was bent half in two, and his nose was dragging along the ground. Howdy, old daddy. What's the matter with you? The man said, I'm old. Can't you see that? Yes, sir, I can see that. How old are you? The man said, at last count, I'm 600 years old. Ooh, Jack said, why didn't you die before you got to be 600 years old? Ain't you heard? Ain't nobody told you? Years ago, some dumbbell tied up the death angel in a sack, and since then, nobody's been able to die. Jack said, uh-oh. Do you reckon that was me? He got to thinking about this. He knew he was too old to climb a tree, so he took his shotgun to the woods and searched till he found the sack. Then he aimed that shotgun at the sack. He shot 3 times. Boom, boom, boom. And one of those shots hit the sack. It started to fall. The top opened and the death angel flew out. I guess you know that Jack was the first to go, but he had lived a long and happy life. And that's the end of that. So much for Soldier Jack and the Death Angel. Soldier Jack. Well, I hope you like that story. It was not about our days of glory, but it was a pretty good story. Told by Jackie Torrance, retold by Doc Ock, who's here to give you a shock as I go ahead and rock this house. Hopefully, when you leave here, you'll be happy as a mouse. But in the meantime, you know what I need all you little children to do right about now. I need you to take your little head and lay it on your little pillow on your little bed. Close those your eyes and wait on that sun to rise. And when you feel those sunbeams beaming down on your eyes, you'll know that it's time for you to rise and shine, old chillin' of mine. And in the meantime, everything's going to be real fine. Even for you adults out there, you know, all you got to do is just have a little care. Take a little care. Don't be like a bear. Take a little care. And go ahead and make your donations now to Black Facts Educational Research Incorporated. That's BLAKFACTS. You spell it just like that, or else you're going to end up with a mess. So make sure you spell it, as I said one more time, BLAKFACTS. That's how you spell Black Facts Educational Research Incorporated. Make your donations now. They can be small, they can be large, they can be medium size. The main thing to do is to help us rise. And the way you can do that is by making a donation right now. It's that time. Go ahead and do your thing so we can continue to sing the praises of our ancestors and all those stories that they held on to long time after their parents and grandparents were gone. Our parents were still holding on to these stories so they could pass them on to us and we could pass them on to the grands. So hopefully you're getting some new stories that you haven't had before. And if nothing else, maybe it's giving you some insight into some old stories that maybe you already had. In the meanwhile, we'll be back tomorrow at noon. Look for us then as we continue the story, The Fences Between, about the life of Norma Marsaday, or Norma Snipes, as she was known in her youth. We'll be continuing her story of life in Northeast Ohio as a young Black female, and her life at Kent State as a young Black female student back in the 1920s, just to give us a little bit of perspective. In the meanwhile, peace out without a doubt, with justice, of course, because anything less is not even a horse of a different color. It's just something that disgusts us. Peace without justice disgusts us. So make sure you mix in a little justice with your peace. Until we meet again, Tutao Nana.